The old radio had not been switched on in decades, but it still dominated the shelf in Mr. Harris's living room. A heavy green box, paint-chipped, metal-scarred, letters fading, U.S. Army signal corps. To most visitors, it was just a war relic, another old thing a veteran refused to throw away. Children thought it looked like something from an old movie. But inside the family, everyone knew. You did not touch Grandpa's radio. The rule was never spoken. It lived in the way his eyes changed whenever a curious hand drifted too close just for a heartbeat. The friendly old man disappeared, and a younger, harder soldier looked out. Mr. Harris talked easily about some parts of the war. He could turn mud and bad coffee into funny stories. He could complain about boots, rations, and officers who didn't know what they were doing. But the real weight of those years stayed buried somewhere behind his jokes. There was, however, one memory that never left him, because in his mind, the radio never really went silent. He had been 23 when it happened. The forward outpost was little more than sandbags, corrugated metal, and stubbornness, pushed up against the edge of thick jungle. Outside, the night was loud with insects and distant, unidentifiable sounds. Inside the bunker, a few men slept in awkward positions, boots still on, weapons within arm's reach. Harris sat alone at the field radio. The dim glow of the dials was the only soft light in the room. Al's sweat clung to his back. Dust and cordite clung to everything else. His job was simple and unforgiving. Stay awake and listen. Most nights the airwaves were a mix of static and routine. Check-ins, coordinates, supply convoys announcing their progress. Familiar call signs appeared and faded. The war moved, but the pattern remained. Then, in the middle of that tired, monotonous rhythm, a new voice cut through. A patrol, call sign Red 2, had drifted off the main route. From their first transmission, Harris could hear that dangerous blend of exhaustion and forced humor. They sounded like men who were trying not to admit they were lost. The jungle around them was thick and featureless. Every direction looked the same. Red 2 asked for help. They needed to know where they were and how to get back. With a pencil and a stained notepad, Harris tried to rebuild their path from fragments. The last junction they remembered. The hill they thought they'd passed, the creek bed that might have been on the map or might not. He sent rough estimates to his sergeant. The sergeant took them to the lieutenant. The lieutenant went to the map board. While officers discussed options, Harris remained the one constant thread between the outpost and the dark. He kept them talking. He asked for small details, not just positions. He let them joke about home, about real coffee, about things they would do when this is over. He didn't say it out loud. He knew what he was really doing, giving them a human voice to hold on to in the middle of a jungle that wanted to erase them. As the night wore on, the tone on the other end changed. The patrol reported movement around them. Nothing clear, nothing seen, just the unmistakable feeling of being watched from the tree line. Their attempts at humor grew thinner. The spaces between words were filled with the wet sounds of the forest and breathing that was just a little too fast. Harris passed along what information he could. He relayed orders to stay low, stay quiet, conserve noise and light. He could not see them, could not guide their feet, but he could be there in their ears. Time stretched. The calls became shorter, more strained. Sometimes only half a sentence came through before static swallowed the rest. The radio hissed, crackled, and occasionally gave him a few clear words, a direction, a curse, a muttered prayer. Then came the message he never forgot. The patrol believed they had found a dry creek bed that might lead back toward the road. It was a risk, but standing still felt worse. If they lost contact, they said, someone should know that they were at least trying to get home. It was the kind of sentence that carries too much weight for a thin copper wire. Harris, with his headset crooked over one ear and his world reduced to a metal box and a voice in the dark, made a quiet promise one the lieutenant beside him could not officially approve, but did not stop. He would stay on that channel. He would be there, listening, until those men walked back through the outpost gate. A few minutes later, chaos arrived over the air. Shouts, heavy breathing, short bursts of sound that every man in that bunker recognized without needing to look at each other. Buried inside that storm of noise, the voice of Red 2 tried to break through one last time. The final message was fragmented. A name, a plea, a half-spoken instruction for family back home. Then the static rose up again, and leveled everything. Harris called for them until his throat hurt. Silence answered. At dawn, the formal language of the war caught up. Reports logged, terms like no further contact and patrol missing written in neat handwriting. On the line marked time of last transmission, Harris wrote down the numbers with a hand that trembled more than he wanted to admit. He did not hear from Red 2 again, finished his tour. He came home, he grew older. The war moved into history books and documentaries. Men who had been young together scattered into ordinary lives or into cemeteries. But at night, when the house was quiet and the modern world's hum finally faded, that one voice would sometimes return. In the dark, without witnesses, it was easy to hear it as clearly as on that night. A call sign, a question, a simple check to make sure he was still there. He always was. Many years later, during a heavy rainstorm, the electricity went out at his house. The television went dark. The fridge stopped humming. The street outside fell silent under the sound of water. His grandson Lucas wandered into the living room and noticed the radio. In the strange, soft darkness, the box looked heavier, more serious. Lucas asked if it still worked. Mr. Harris told him that, technically, it did not, that the tubes were dead and the wires were brittle. But long ago, he said, it had been the only thing standing between some men and a kind of silence nobody should ever have to meet. For the first time, he told the story. Not with every detail, not with every sound and fear, but enough. Enough for a boy to understand that sometimes, in war, the bravest thing you can give another person is the promise that you are still listening. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Mr. Harris sat alone in his chair. The rain had slowed to a whisper outside. The radio on the shelf was just a dark shape against the wall. In his memory, though, the dials still glowed and the headset was still warm. Somewhere, far away and long ago, a voice was still asking if he was there. He closed his eyes and let the old reflex answer. He was still there. And in that quiet room, for one more moment, the radio was not entirely silent.